Now, highly anticipated show. I'm about to bring my guest on in a second. I want everybody to get comfortable. Thank you for your patience, family. Thank you for your patience. Get comfortable. We're about to get started. Let me get to a quick commercial. We are coming closer and closer to this thing called the Gathering of the Masses, and the excitement is building. It's heating up out here, and we're gonna have a great time. And tonight's show, ooh, Lord, family, if you got a loved one, I would advise you to share the link with a loved one because everybody needs to see this show here tonight. All right, I'll be back in 1 minute, family. Yeah, hit that like button. Be right back.
Yo. I fought plenty battles, caught many arrows, flossed plenty apparel, resembling the pharaohs, cemented in the gravel, extensive in my travels. Not to mention, ascension is my cattle. Cash cow, we milking it. Laugh now, we killing it. Last round, we still in it. Axe round, we healing shit. Hands down, we killing it. No pass down, it's silk in this. Pack your bags, take this pilgrimage. Guaranteed to be epic like Gilgamesh. Gilded flesh and shields with crests. I'ma have to kill you if I reveal the rest. All I know is when life try you, you better kill that test. That's the only real that the real respect. Niggas went from dealing death to flipping morse to heal the flesh. That's the real adept. That's the illest flex. That reveals what's next.
My investors don't need to be angels. They could be the archetypes of the darkest type. Archangels who are dark and mango, like Tony Starks, and monsters like Thanos. Bangles need to be strangled and quantum entangled. And them carrots that sponsors are dangle. Only built for these bust down Cuban links. Only fans.
All right, family, we're about to get this thing started. I want to welcome back to the platform. Last show was absolutely magnificent. Want to welcome back to the platform once again the wonderful Soleil. Welcome back to the platform, Queen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love being on here with you all.
Oh yeah, I got such a great response last time you were here. People love the energy, the divine feminine energy that you represent. It was almost like you were channeling, and it was straight from the heart, and it hit everybody's soul. So I was like, yeah, I gotta get the queen back on here to talk her talk, do her thing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And
it's interesting you say that though, because that's what happens most of the time. My first Guruji, who just passed away in April, he was almost 80. He would always tell me, like, don't over prepare, because I love to study, have a lot of books to study and read, and he would be like, no, don't over prepare. You got to leave space for the mother. You have to leave room to channel. You got to leave room for that divine wisdom to come through, and not just spouting off words of other men, other women, other people.
No, yeah. Yeah, I know. Rest in power to that brother. I know he would be very proud of your works and how you're out here speaking. So yeah, shout out to him for telling you that. That is words of wisdom right there. Soleil, this topic tonight. First of all, I want to give props to the Nation of Islam, everybody in the Nation of Islam who influenced this talk tonight. I watched a video with Farrakhan called How to Give Birth to a God. And I know other people in the nation talked about it as well, but I want to give honor to the nation for even bringing up this topic. It was important then, and it's more so important right now, family. Soleil, I want to start out like this, just to tell you, we're in 2024. A lot of people don't want to have children because of the state of the world. They're like, oh, everything going on, all the agendas happening, whether it's all the agendas, multiple agendas at play here, the brainwashing, the programming from social media, the music, the news, the entertainment. I mean, the churches, I mean, you name it. It's almost like there's an assault, a mental, spiritual assault happening in every institution, the school system, the medical institution. So people are scared. They're like, nah, I'm not bringing a child in this world at this time. And I want to talk to the people who have more spiritual enlightenment, so let our family know, the people know that don't be scared to bring gods into this realm, which is essentially who we are, gods and goddesses, or, whether you want to call it that, or there's other terms that people use, but we're all apertures of this divine light, this divine divinity, this higher consciousness. And you shouldn't be afraid to bring that into this world, because that is absolutely amazing. That is the best that you could ever do. Um, so I want to have a great conversation, a grown-up, high-level conversation, as 19 Key says tonight, dealing with that. But based on what I said and the fear, Soleil, and I know you have children, the fear of the man and woman bringing a child into this realm because of the condition in the realm. To start out with, what advice, what would you have to say to somebody who is fearful to bring a God into this realm?
Mm. Yeah, first of all, I feel that, I
Yes.
mean, I can feel and empathize with those who are, walking in fear, because we are in very extremely dangerous times. We're in the times that we live in are bringing about so much fear, instilling fear in so many people, and it is, understandably so. However, we can't allow ourselves to be ruled by fear. I have four daughters and one granddaughter. I just turned 51 yesterday, and I've had those feelings, those fleeting feelings for a moment of, like, oh my God, look at the state of the world and what is going to be here for my children and my grandchildren and my great grandchildren. And not just that, those other people within my family that are birthing children and having children, and then even greater than that, all of creation, because the biggest piece in that is that we're all interconnected. And so, um, the more this is, we need, in order to change the trajectory of what is happening right now in the world, we need to be consciously birthing children into the earth realm. So, those who are aware and feeling some fear around that, knowing that we can consciously choose, choose to birth beings that are going to come to the world and help change the trajectory and help usher in, a new age. Because if not, we give into that fear, we're giving in to really to be defeated. And then, depending on what you believe, whether you believe or not really doesn't matter, but depending on your view, you coming back.
Now that is interesting.
So you
Wow.
what if if you're birthing children into the world, if we are consciously conceiving and consciously creating, not just out here haphazardly laying down and getting caught up in, in desire is not a bad thing, but just unconsciously out here laying around and then
Mhm.
birthing children, yeah, then it should be something to fear. But for those who are walking, in purpose and really understand the responsibility that we have, um, to change the trajectory and to project and create the world that we want to see, then I feel like it is a divine duty then to consciously, for those who, I mean, there are people that don't want to have children for other reasons, and we do have that choice. So
Mm.
that's not to say to take away anyone's choice to not be a parent for whatever the reason. But if the reason is simply fear
Right.
what is to come in this very dangerous world we're living in, valid to feel that fear, and then to walk through it, to understand again that we do
That's
have choice in what we birth into the world. We have choice in the type of being that we call into the world at this
right, right,
time, to
right.
really help usher in a new age.
Indeed. No, indeed. Let me show you a comment real quick, and I want to ask a question based on this. So this sister name is Curves and Cosmos. She says, I'm 37 with no children. Not sure if I should still consider children at this point. So what I noticed, Soleil, is that in my grandmother's era, I was raised by my mother, my grandmother. My grandmother had, I think, what, 5 or 6 children.
Mm,
Back in the 50s, in the 60s, you were having multiple children in your 20s.
yeah.
Now it almost seems so like now, if a sister was to say, "Oh, I got 3 children, I'm 28," they'd be like, "Damn, what the fuck?" They'll look down on her. They'll be like, "You got 3 kids and you only 28." They'd be like, "You wilding. You what do you they immediately start thinking about money and career and this and that." So a lot of people almost feel bad to have multiple children in their 20s because the corporate world or friends and family will look at them almost strange, like, wow, you're 21 and you have a child. That was normal a long time ago, but now if you're 21 and you have a child, it's like, wow, you promiscuous, you fresh. So with that type of indoctrination from society, and this sister right here, she's 37 and no children, what would you say to her? And that type of, and people who criticize her, who may criticize her or have criticized her in the past if she felt like she should have children.
I know it's deep. That's, I had my children, all of my children in my first one, actually, I was almost 19 when I had, and then the other three children I had all in my 20s. Last one, I was 29 when I had, there's a gap between them. And interestingly enough, I didn't have that pressure to not have children, or to, though I did pursue careers, I didn't have the pressure to go out and pursue careers, a career at the time, as opposed to being a mother. And I think it's very telling of the times that we are in, that not that women shouldn't be able to pursue careers and to be able to, if they desire, to go out and pursue a career and be in the world and make a living in that way, if they have dreams and aspirations. But I think it's just very telling of the time that we are in and the age that we are in, when we see women being discouraged from doing it, being shamed for doing the most important job that there is, should you take it on. I always tell people, I left the music industry, not just because, one of the main reasons was because I was going through a spiritual reawakening at a very young age, in my 20s. And I was uncomfortable with what I was promoting, what I was rapping about. I was still young in my 20s. I didn't get old and be like, oh, now y'all, we shouldn't be saying that. I was in my 20s and like, nah, this ain't it. But in addition, it was that I wanted to be there present for my children, raising my children. And I sacrificed at that time. I had the privilege, because in this day and age, unfortunately, it's a privilege as opposed to an encouragement, a right of the society, a right of women to be supported and stay home and nurture and care for the children that we are birthing into this earth realm, like the very next generation, those that are going to carry on, And so we have, literally, I had a conversation with my niece today, who's only 20 and having her first baby. And she's talking to me about, oh, I graduate from hair school tomorrow. And then, I'm having a baby, I'm due in September. And then I'm going to find a daycare, because after that, then, I'll be home for however many weeks. And then I got to find a daycare for the baby. And I'm like, without shaming her, because that's what she had. That's what this society had. This is what it has come to, that we are now unconsciously birthing children by chance, not by choice, most often by chance, no pre-planning, no preparation. The preparation begins prior to conception. Good. And then giving birth to a child, and then going to handing them over to a caretaker in hopes that they don't harm your child, not knowing what they're going to instill in that child, not knowing how your child is going to be cared for. Nobody's going to care for that child like the mother that gave birth to it. And then the women, we lived in tribal ways. We lived in a community of women in ancient times that everybody took care of the babies. So there was no thing of, do I have to go drop the baby off and leave it in the care of someone else? Because the care of someone else was when you were being resting and taken care of. Your mama was helping take care of that baby, your aunties, your sisters, the village women, everybody. It takes a village, was chipping in and assisting with the care of that child. And so now we have a society that is that reveres a distorted masculine idea of success. And so and then looks down on those things that are so vital to us moving forward as a high elevated species, because we're not even getting the nurturing and the love and the nourishment that is required to become a productive, just even not even on a spiritual, just a productive citizen in society. See, we had, in ancient times, in various cultures throughout the world, there was the idea of preparation far before you became pregnant. You know, there's different scriptures in the Dharmic tradition that deal with different aspects of education around a prenatal state and how to care for the woman on a mental level, on a spiritual level, on a physical level, that whole preparation for the mother to be. And there's text written on it. In Ayurveda, there's text on how to, give birth to a baby that got a healthy mind, that has a healthy body, that has a healthy spirit,
Wow.
coming in highly evolved. The preparation of a couple to plan out a pregnancy prior to conception, to prepare their bodies. There's I can't remember where this, not necessarily a scripture or a sloka, it comes from one of the texts though, that says, it talks about true maternity beginning with conscious creation of a being, with the will shape of a soul coming in to develop and utilize this new body, not just by chance, oh, this, there, that I would just by happenstance had, but no, a real caring for the mother to be. There was practices on what you were consuming, the environment that the woman was in, based off of astrological placements, mantras being chanted, specific days of the week. I mean, like high level conscious conception, as opposed to what we see now, where people are like, I'm just trying to get mine. Not even thinking about any future generation, just focused on myself, me, my mind right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And speaking of future generations, and not just in your household, but in the overall world, and looking to protect and do the best for future generations, we have a lot of situations where some women are single mothers
Mm,
and they don't have a man at home to protect the household.
mm,
And a lot of brothers feel as though it's necessary, if they see something going on, just like back in the days, the neighborhood will raise the child. So if something's going on the block or outside, the brothers would step in to try to resolve certain problems. If a woman was being treated or abused a certain way, brothers would step in. And this, if a lot of people feel as though this is what maintain our culture and the integrity of our culture, there's certain situations, Soleil, and I want to ask you about this, where there's a brother from the Nation of Islam named Nuri Muhammad.
mm,
A sister was in, I think a sister and her child, he said, were in a dispute. I guess it was a boyfriend or whoever it may have been, but the sister was in a verbal dispute, got a little physical with a gentleman outside in a public area, and Nuri tried to defend her, and he said he almost got beat to death trying to defend her.
mhm,
And you hear a lot of people, once you're conscious, they'll say you got to protect the black woman, protect her, and you out there, and a lot of brothers is like, damn, I gotta mind my business. I hear that, protect the black woman, I gotta mind my business. And it's a weird situation that a lot of people are forced with, where they see something going on, but they start thinking about their family at home, and
mm,
should they intervene in outside problems they see within their community to try to make their community better. They're like, nah, instead of the community, I need to focus on home. So I want to talk to you about the idea of worrying about your home versus worrying about your home and the community, and potentially what Nuri Muhammad did, put himself in danger by, I guess, trying to protect the woman and almost got beat to death by it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's it's a difficult, Griff and I actually had this conversation a while back, and I'm not sure if it was because of Nuri Muhammad and what he said. Um, but it's a difficult position to be in. It's a difficult position to like, how do you ultimately decide whether to step in or not? We have a responsibility not only to ourselves but to our community, and then we also have the responsibility to hold a level of wisdom to know when, to intervene, to know when to step in, to have the wisdom to know how to step in and intervene in a situation like that. And, unfortunately, we live in a world and social media world, and everybody likes to make blanket statements, and this is what you should do, and this is what you shouldn't do, and you should always do this, and you should never do that. And for me, there's a lot of gray areas in life. There's a lot of which there's a lot of gray areas in life. And I don't think that there is ever any time that anyone should say that you should always step in any situation and intervene in a way, or that or that you should just always look away. I don't think there is one answer. I think that wisdom, when we start walking on a path where we're being divinely guided and we come upon a situation in that way, then looking to that, trusting that own intuition. When we are really connected, when we are connected to source and fully embodied in the same way, within the body, where we're not just trusting the wisdom of our minds, but we're trusting the wisdom of the body, the intuition that is more intelligent than the prefrontal cortex. Then we know when to intervene and when to not. Luckily, Nori lived to tell that story. So I can't say that I think we do have a responsibility. We absolutely have a responsibility to ourselves, our family, and to our community. I say this all the time. We are interconnected. So what's happening down the block is affecting you, whether you think it is or not. What's happening across the world is affecting you, whether you think it is or not. This web of life, this interconnected web. But we have to be allowed to be guided by wisdom. We just have to be guided by wisdom. Wisdom might say you don't intervene. You got to be able to hear that still small voice. Louisa T calls it she who whispers. We have to be able to hear that. We have to be able to hear and know what am I supposed to do in any given situation? How and how? Because stepping in and intervening, maybe it can look very different for different people in different ways. And spirit might be like, walk the other way.
Yeah. No, powerful. Yeah, like somebody said earlier, this is a unfortunate but very realistic topic, something that a lot of people are faced with this type of decision. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to ask you that question. What I want to ask Soleil in terms of everybody, once somebody's pregnant, or the lady's pregnant, the brother and the sister, the man and the woman, whoever's having a child, they want their child to be happy. They want their child to grow up to be successful. They want their child to be the best that they can be. And, they invest in their child. They do their best, a lot of people, to get their child to reach that level. What I want to ask you is, if you're into the spiritual information and you want to birth this star seed, let's just say star seed, you want to birth this star seed, do you think it requires, Soleil, a conscious partner, a spiritual partner, for a person to produce a star seed? Or maybe only one person could be tapped in and the other person may be a little dead, a little bit on the unwoken side? Can those two still produce a star seed? Because a lot of people's like, I gotta wait for the right person to produce a seed, and it never happens. So what's your thoughts on that?
Wow. As the more we talk and continue to have conversations, I think you'll realize about me that a lot of time, most time, my answers are never either or.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Most often,
that's that wisdom. That's that wisdom in you. That's that wisdom. I know.
And most often it's going to be both and it depends. It depends. Yeah. How many of us didn't come from conscious parents? How many people right now who are, I want to say Minister Farrakhan, he's talked about his upbringing, so it's not to say that someone can't come step into a high level or have a high level calling and come through a vessel that is not what we consider to be conscious and awake. That doesn't mean that's the ideal, because it's the exception. I think that more often than not, we will see those that are ascending to high levels of awareness and being nurtured in a certain way in the womb. But again, it's a both and. It's not for me, it's not one or the other. I think it's ideal. I think it is ideal. I think the odds of giving birth to a child that to a star seed child, as we, as the term that you chose, a child that is here to really help change the trajectory, to
Mhm,
have high level mastery over his life, or to
mhm,
ascend on a high level spiritually or materially, either or, it could happen in either way, but operating in ma'at, you know,
mhm,
in truth, balance, justice, righteousness, are the odds greater if that is called in from the very beginning and nurtured through the womb, and the mother is cared for to a high level, and she's operate, because the mother is imprinting on the child,
mhm,
in utero. So who knows if there's that mother is imprinting her relationship with the father, is imprinting her emotions, is all being imprinted upon everything she's doing, the way she's being cared for, the way she's being held, the way she's seen, and the way she sees herself, all is being imprinted on the child and creating the perception filters that the child will then be birthed into. So if those are if the woman is in a, not being revered, and we just happen to go out and have sex one night, and now I'm pregnant, and I really don't want the child, and now I'm, and I'm listening to all kind of nonsense, and I'm eating any type of foods, and I'm not really caring for the fact that I have a soul that I'm
mhm.
knitting together, the body of a being that's going to affect the rest of the world, because we all affect the world, no
Right.
matter how little
Mm,
or small, and so the chances of, even if that child does come out and be the exception, what if that same child had been nurtured to such a high degree from preconception through conception and then after? How much more would
mm,
they possibly, so it's both and. It's not an either or for me, because we know souls come into this world with an assignment, and sometimes the vessel they come through may not be the vessel we think that they should have come through, but
mm,
the lessons that they may need through that vessel. But it's a time. I think we really are in a time that um, this pause is happening, and more people are going to become more conscious of what they are giving birth to, not only physical birth, giving birth to children, but in the projects that they're birthing, the
mm,
communities that they're giving birth to, all of the work that we're doing, everything that we're putting our hands to, everything that we are creating, and just being more aware of that. We're seeing that begin to happen. We're seeing more people getting interested in so-called, consciousness.
mm.
So,
Indeed. No, indeed. I want to read you something. This is from the University of Washington. And there's been plenty of studies, but this is just one of them that I'm going to read real quick. And I always noticed growing up that woman, when it comes time to, and I'm bringing a woman because the child comes through
yeah.
that womb. um, Women were always concerned with their body counts. So if you're not in the street and you don't know slang, when I say body counts, that means how many partners. The woman's concerned with how many partners she has. So a woman will stay sometime, I find, with a dude, and she'll sleep with a dude, even though she's not with him, just because she don't want no more bodies. She don't want to have no more sex partners. She just, all right, the dude, at least he got good sex, so I'm gonna stay with him because I don't want to keep adding different sex partners to my body count, and I look up and I got 30 sex partners by the time I'm 30. So let me just read you something real quick, because this was interesting. I just heard about this, I think either last year or 2 years ago, and I was like, damn, is this for real? What's the deal with this? So like I said, this is a couple of studies, but this is just the University of Washington in collaboration with the Cancer Institute said women store, listen to this, Soleil,
Hmm.
women store DNA from every man they've ever had made unprotected sex with. They said the offsprings can inherit an acquired characteristic of their mother's previous man. What the, so like what the hell? Now if this is true, this is almost like this hurts the man that the father. Like, damn, my baby got traits from the last dude and the last dude. But my point in actually in bringing this up is the era, the age we live in. Women look at they want to be able to do the things the boys do, the men do. And men are very promiscuous. So women is like, dudes is doing it. What's wrong with me? They want to be a hot girl. They want to be a city girl. They want to emulate what they're seeing on television. And the dudes is doing it. Dudes been out of control. So woman is like, what's wrong with us doing it? Y'all been out of control. Based on that mindset and based on this study that I read you, that sounds like a dangerous recipe, Soleil.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on the study, if it's true or not? And if it is true, how should we go about this? Because the study is true.
I have heard the study, and so I have seen that study. It's also was a teaching taught to me by a teacher many years ago. I've heard people refute the study and say it's not true as well. So again, there's the is it or is it not? The I think the deeper point of it is that even if there's no lingering effect on a physical level from having, having sex with just random people,
Right.
That there is an energetic effect. There's a spiritual effect. This idea of sex being so casual now and so handled so loosely and carelessly now. And first, before I go into that, to the point of you were mentioning the father or someone else imprinting or having an effect on that child. This is even more reason, if it is true, if the study is true and accurate, again, on a physical level, we know it to be true. We're sharing energies with other people that on an energetic level, and then that energy affects the mother still. There's still cellular memory and imprint from engaging in that way with someone else. So, and then whatever state of the mother is going to imprint upon the child. But whether it's true or not on a physical level, this still gives reason to how to clear, how we need to be preparing consciously if we become, if we come to understand what we're doing, and then to begin to prepare to clear the body, to energetically clear the body, to energetically clear imprints that happen, so that we are calling in a divine being. And then I'm going to speak to that in a whole other way too. But this casuality of the way that we look at sex, sex in ancient times was at one point, because we can say ancient times, it's a whole span of history that we could be talking about there. But was a time, and without having the timeline in front of me, that a woman opening her body to was a way that kingship was conferred.
Interesting.
The way that power was bestowed upon the man.
Wow.
Right? On a, there was a very specific alchemy that happened with sex. And, in the tantric tradition, Maituna, this was considered the supreme union of Shiva and Shakti, the divine union of consciousness and energy. Like a surrender of our individual consciousness into the universal consciousness, what is representing. And so the woman having that power, that ability to bless, to provide, to give that kingship over. And so we had, within ourselves, the sexuality, our creative expression. And that was one and the same with the living goddess, who gives abundance, the ability to act, nourishment, the rightness, to all things. And then, so this sacred union, this was out of sacred union, was born a blessing, the fruition that happened in the earth, in all levels, in nature, through the flowers, the fruit, milk and honey and abundance. When we begin to take something that is so powerful, in a very pure, innocent way, not in an objectified, porn-driven, power-centric, distorted, sexual expression that comes through in this modern culture. We take something so powerful, that expresses itself. It's an energy that expresses itself through humankind and all of nature, and it is the expression of high holy union. And when in the expression of sexuality in that way, we become vessels through which goddess ride through our being to meet and be met. And then through our intention, then we connect into that ecstatic experience. And so this idea to take something for something so powerful to then be relegated into something that is just to use and be used for base pleasure, fleeting pleasure, or to manipulate and use one with, we in a very, a very bad state right now, as far as how this modern culture views sex and sexuality. Our connection with sexual force, with our sexual force, is about having an erotic and sensual connection to all of life. That's not actually explicitly sexual, but just this idea of a continual love making, this idea, and so I think part of it is we have a culture that has taken sex and debased it to the lowest level, uses it, in the state of just a state of usury, using one another, and then violating one another. Right. And though violations don't break you really, truly at the core, because you're incorruptible at the core, and sexuality is ever renewing and regenerating and resurrecting. It's a resurrecting life force. But sexual union is alchemy. It is that alchemical journey of transformation, two elements relating inside a container or crucible. Like
Indeed. Yeah.
is the vessel of the relationship, whether it's an actual relationship or a situationship, but whatever it is, it's still a separate thing. So you got two separate elements coming together inside the container of whatever the relationship is. And then that sexual current being the flame of the alchemy, of the two elements that are you and the other. And then these two coming together and forever being changed. So when you think of it this way, when you come into sexual union with someone, you are forever changed.
Forever change. Right.
In some way, right? You're forever changed, never remaining the same after that.
Oh, yeah.
We take it's taken so lightly, but the truth of it is that really we become the custodians of one another's souls on a certain level when you have sex with someone else. And especially when you come into a relationship, there's
elaborate on that a little. You say we become the custodians.
Custodianship, in the idea that there's a responsibility there. There's a vulnerability there. There's usually a power dynamic there. And no matter, you're transforming, elevating, or debasing one another on some level. And soul custodianship deals with like this interpenetration by a greater intimacy of soul. Recognizing that is crucial. Is nothing casual about sexual encounters, no matter how brief they are. There's nothing casual about it. But this culture,
even if it's a one-night stand, even if it's a one-night stand,
is nothing truly casual about it. You are you're having the most intimate act that is the highest level of alchemy, something that you are coming in union with someone else that you will be forever changed in some way, even if it's so slight that you don't recognize it, doesn't mean that it's not happening. You are changed every single time on a certain level. And so we have to learn and teach our children to take sexuality and sexual encounters seriously. This doesn't mean that we got to be prudes. This don't mean we have to. This doesn't even mean that you have to be. I'm monogamous, and I've always been monogamous by nature. But I'm still saying it doesn't necessarily mean you have to even be monogamous by nature. It means you need to be clear, concise, and intentional with sexual relationships. Right? So we have to learn and teach our children to take sexuality and sexual encounters seriously. They are deeply impactful, even when we don't recognize it. It is one of the holiest, most sacred things, one of the deepest gifts we can share. And so having an awareness of that alchemy, an awareness of who you are choosing to bind with, who is imprinting on you, and especially men are imprinted on by women. But I would say, when I would offer that, in my opinion, women are more deeply imprinted on, because the womb is a receptive vessel. It's holding more, and so this, we're free to choose and make so-called mistakes, these karmas, which just means actions and the consequences that come from them. But really shifting from this idea of sex being such a casual thing that we just toss around, when again, this was something so powerful that in ancient times, in order to have kingship conferred, it took a woman to open herself to you. This is a way to really explore who you really are, to remember who you are through a sacred union in this way. Connecting with a lover in a way that, as a union with God is focusing, on, it's forcing us into something that is greater than ourselves as an individual. So yeah, it's not as simple as as this society has made it had seem, and we really a disservice has been done in so many ways.
Indeed.
So many ways for our debasement of such a powerful sacred act. And again, we don't have to go to this idea of purity and well, on a level, yes, on a level. I'm saying, like, not on the idea of from the a stuffy prude.
Gotcha.
You understand what I'm saying?
I got you. Let me ask you this, Soleil. All right. So in the spiritual community, they teach that they say that the souls choose the parents to come through. So a lot of times we think we're manifesting this, manifesting that, choosing the child's name. They're like, hey, the soul chooses his name and it chooses the parents it wants to come through for their particular mission. Now, if this is true, Soleil, what I've noticed, if you analyze some of the most powerful souls that came through in the last 100 years, let's just say in the Black community, they don't come through parents that got it all together. So and that's confusing, because as being on this conscious high frequency vibe that we are on, that we're striving to be on, we want to eat the best alkaline food. We want the best high frequency partner. We want to say our prayers, our mantras, do our yoga. We want to do all these things and bring forth this God, this child of God. But the child of God is saying, I'm going to this nigga. He smoke weed. He smoke crack. She do this. She's a prostitute. Oh yeah, I'm coming through them. And it's like the child goes through this unexpected vessel, and you're like, hey, what about me? I got it all together. Why didn't you come through me? If it's true that the soul chooses his parents, we analyze Malcolm X. You mentioned Farrakhan. He said his mother tried to abort him several times, and she just kept trying, and eventually she just gave up. Like, God damn, I can't get rid of this child. And if I could come up with example. Tupac, born in a jail cell. Afeni Shakur. She got hooked on crack, unfortunately. Tupac is the most influential rapper of all time. These souls come through these parents that don't have their shit together. But Soleil, me, you, and all of us watching want to get our shit together. This shit is confusing to us, Soleil. Could you please explain that dynamic? Please.
Look, I can only share what I know, and look, I'm like, there's a big responsibility. I don't never pretend to know something I don't know.
Yeah.
I will I would say from my limited well of knowledge and understanding, and my limited perspective, we're souls coming here to Earth School to ascend, and some of those souls may need that, you know, whatever lessons are going to come,
Yeah.
whatever lessons are going to come through coming through that particular vessel. Now, does it necessarily mean, again, that that is the ideal for what we are trying to create? If we are trying to create this idea of heaven on earth,
Hmm.
of heaven being right here on earth, we living life as it is, and not necessarily having to go through some of the hardest of the hard things, right? But um a soul coming through is coming here to get the lessons that they need. And so, just from my limited perspective, I would say that those souls that were ready to do some,
Oh yeah.
that needed a to be propelled to
Yeah.
a level, and some people need to be propelled in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
this is just my thought from my limited perspective. Again, ideally, do we want to have to do that though? Do we want
Yeah.
to do we want that to be the ideal? So I don't think we should take it as an excuse to say, well, such and such came through and his mama tried to kill him and he can't turn out all right. How much more did he have to suffer and go through in order to be at that place? Do we want to be calling souls through that are going to have to go through, or do we want to call souls through our body that are going to be able to do even possibly greater works because they had an earlier start? you
Hmm.
know
Yeah.
um yeah, yeah, I'm gonna leave that
No,
there.
definitely,
Just
definitely.
my 2
I,
cents on that, 'cause
yeah, I definitely love that response. I want to get to a couple of questions
mm,
because the chat is very active tonight. Obviously, this is a topic that gets everybody going. A lot of people are interested in it, and it pertains to pretty much everybody. So
mm,
I want to get some of the questions from the family tonight before we get out of here. Let me ask you. All right. I wish I would have saved this question from earlier. I seen a couple of people. We was talking about the exchange of we're talking about bringing gods into this realm. We're talking about the exchange of energy sexually and how that impacts the woman, the man, and especially the woman. A person wants people want to know, what about oral sex? Does that have a lesser effect? So if sex has a lasting imprint, I brought up the study from the University of Washington. What do you think about oral sex? Do you think that has as much as an impression as sex does?
Um, yeah, as far as levels and degrees, I can't even pretend to know that. I would imagine that it's still a sexual encounter, and there you were still talking about energy being exchanged. We're still talking about a receiving and a giving. We're still talking about, a vulnerability and an opening to something. And we're still talking about an exchange of DNA in some form or fashion. So I feel like there's still, from my limited understanding, I feel like that there's still an effect. Now, to what
Indeed.
degree, whether lesser or more, I just don't know. I don't know.
Indeed. Once again, family, I'm taking a couple of questions. Give me some questions for Soleil, and I'm gonna ask some questions in terms of how to give birth to a God. And
Mm,
like I said, family, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This show is important. I've noticed a lot of people, and it crossed my mind a couple of times. The programming almost got me like, damn, should I have a child? This world is pretty messed up. So I
mm,
know this is something that's scary for a lot of people. I know a lot of us want to do it right. Some of us underthink, some of us overthink. But I definitely are glad that we could all have this open, honest conversation
mm.
about giving birth to a God in this realm. Shout out to the Nation of Islam for influencing this conversation tonight.
And did
Yeah,
you have a question? I was to say, if you didn't, I had something I wanted to share around that as well
yeah,
too.
yeah, please, please, please.
So the idea from the perspective of my tradition is that is as a tantrika, the tantric thought is very clear and straightforward in regard to spiritual transformation, right? that we are here and we go from being a biological being to God. This is what the knowing thyself, is. And so going from this biological being to, in my tradition, Shiva Shakti, or from a mortal soul to a divine being or a God. And so Tantra says that every particle has the essence of the divine, right? And we have every one of us has that particle in it, and then to self-realize, or is the goal to realize ourselves as that. Tat Tvam Asi, I am that, thou art that, I am that. And so through practices, wisdom, traditions, we awaken, and then we become that living God, goddess. Otherwise, we remain as, a biological female or male with that potential lying dormant, right? So I think it's important when we talk about giving birth to a God to know that really anytime we give birth, we are giving birth to a God
Right.
that is unaware.
Right.
Giving birth to God that is unaware.
Yes.
So to the level of awakening is just the level of awareness is what determines whether we are actually walking it out or not, because we, and again, in the tradition, we believe that we already are that particle. We're the essence of it. So we are it. And so, it is really coming to understand and harmonizing our inner and outer nature. And this spiritual path with all of these practices to help us remember, to help liberate us, and to liberate us from what? To liberate us from anything that keeps us from understanding our true nature, which is that of the divine, which is God. And so we have practices to harmonize our inner and outer nature, transmutation at its core essence. So not about suppressing anything or idealizing anything, but about really the embodiment of life as it is. The structure of nature, the 5 elemental structure, the knowing and understanding that we are the same as nature, the structure of nature itself, thus the structure of the divine itself. We're mirrors of the universe, designed in the same structure as the universe. And so it's just about that remembering. And so when we can, so again, this speaks back to, can someone in any state give birth to a God? Absolutely. We're all giving birth to, just not aware, so not necessarily walking it out. But any of us, regardless of the circumstances of our birth, can have that awakening. Ideally, though, we would want to be living lives so that we can live a life that is in ma'at, that we can live a life that, within divine law and balance and harmony and truth. We can be ma'at karu. We can be true of voice. We can be one who demonstrates the capacity to consistently voice or command or deliver or enact that which is in harmony with divine order. So we can all, we are all that. We are all already that, and have that potential lying dormant within us, just waiting for it to be awakened. So the benefit of coming through a vessel who has already been purified, who is already walking in ma'at, who is already, to the best of their ability, striving to live a life that is liberated from illusion and delusion, then calling a soul into the body that we can imprint that on and continue to do that, as opposed to continuing to call in souls that have to go through so much of of what we have created here,
Indeed.
So there was so the traditions, though, I'm sharing it from a different perspective, a different tradition. The teachings and the essence of the teachings are the same. The essence that the Honorable Minister Farrakhan and Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was referenced so much in that, in that talk, the essence of those teachings are the same. The essence of those teachings are that, there's that the environment influences whether we're producing what they would call in a nation a devil or a god. So in our tradition, there's no devil but the demon. These are just anything that is keeping us from the truth, anything that keeps us separate from the truth. And the truth is that we are all divine by nature. right? We
Indeed.
are reflections of the divine.
Being that and I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm real glad you mentioned that. We're all giving births to God. We're all divine by nature. A big concern is something that a lot of parents that I think in the time when Farrakhan made this lecture,
Mhm.
they weren't dealing with the level of autism that
Mhm.
we are dealing with in today's society. And I don't want to get into the whole V thing and YouTube flag the channel because we could talk a lot about the whole the shots that they're giving out or whatever. But in terms of children dealing with autism, this wasn't a big problem back then like it is now.
Yeah.
Why are these gods choosing to? Is this something that these guys want to experience, or is this something that you think the parent? And I know it's not an either or black or white answer, is gray, but it's just something new that we are faced with that our grandmothers didn't. I guess our grandmothers didn't have was faced with in terms of children being born with this condition. What advice would you have to all the parents out there right now, Soleil?
Rich, you just keep on throwing like big questions at me.
Oh man, you the perfect one to ask. You come with the wisdom. You come with the wisdom.
We all have some. We all have wisdom. God. Oh wow. Hmm. Yeah, because we also said we don't want to get your channel flagged
Yeah,
either.
with what I'm talking about, the V thing, and
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I think even more importantly, more reason for us to become more aware of
hmm
who we are,
hmm
to awaken that wisdom on the inside, so that we're not constantly seeking outside of ourselves for all of the answers. The
okay,
answers are all always ultimately within us. What is best for us is ultimately within us, and no one knows it better than we do. When we are so filled with toxins and chemicals and destructive messaging and programming, and constantly bombarded with the noise, so much noise right now, so many voices right now,
okay.
so much noise. We get on social media and it's just noise, noise, noise,
hmm
noise, voice, opinion, voice, nonsense, bullshit, over and over and over and over.
hmm
And we never have the opportunity to sit in silence. So most people can't even silence their mind to even hear and know the truth. It's just so much noise and chatter all the time. And this is also part of the reason why I don't really. It's not a good thing, that I don't really speak and share a whole lot.
hmm
And people are always telling me, "Oh, you share more and teach more publicly and do more lives and do." And I'm like, so much noise out there. It's just so much noise. But we do need more voices of wisdom and reason. Um, but all that to say, if we're not able to get quiet, create space between the thoughts, um, to become embodied,
hmm
really be able to hear the wisdom of our own bodies, because God speaks to us from within us.
hmm
But if we can't hear it because of all the noise and chatter, and we're always looking outside of ourselves, I work with a lot of women. I work with men and women, but a lot more with women. And I'm always, stressing to women that you need to be able to tend your inner garden so meticulously, your inner terrain so meticulously, that when you come home to yourself, there's something nourishing and beautiful and wise to come home to, that you're able to come inside, to go within, and it's such a place of beauty there. It's such a place of divine beauty and grace and wisdom awakened there, that you don't need to seek outside of yourself for the answers. And I think that would be the advice in regard to what you asked,
Yeah.
without going deep into. We all know innately what is best for us and what we need to do. If we can't hear, though, because we're bombarded constantly, then we can't hear it and we don't know. So then we're just seeking outside and we don't know what to do and we're confused and should I do this and should I do that? And we can't make a sound decision for ourselves because we are filled with toxins and noise and pollution and nonsense. We have to take time to create space to get off social media from time to time, to shut out all the distractions from time to time, to sit and go within because God speaks to us from within
Within.
us.
Excellent. Indeed. Two more questions for you, Soleil. I definitely appreciate this talk tonight. Like I said, very, very, very important, family. If you have somebody that you truly love, let's share this with them. And because it's about our future and we got to pay it forward. We wouldn't be here if it was not for the sacrifice of our ancestors and what they went through. We need to pass that down, and we need to make certain sacrifices for the future generations coming down the line. Soleil, and I heard Bobby Hemmett say this before. This question here. Power to the Gods wants to know, could you expound on sex being the true marriage? I heard Bobby Hammond say, sex is that you're married, whoever you're having sex with is who you're married to. Could you expound on that concept if you believe in it or not?
Well, I think what that speaks to is what I was sharing before, in this idea that when that sexual union is high alchemy. We're coming into this state of soul custodianship. We are again creating a third thing. We are this high form of alchemy that happens when we bring two things together in order to create. Something is created, whether it's a child or something else, something is created. But marriage in the sense of, again, this was, so there was, in there was called a heros gamos in the Greek term, the heros gamos,
Mm-hmm.
the sacred union.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about the sex magic of Aset and Heru or Maituna, this,
Mm-hmm.
the divine union, again, because it represents the divine union of consciousness and energy, or, our the manifest world and the divine world. This was in the teachings of Yeshua and Magdalene prior to the prior to all the books being taken out. But this on a physical level, you know, in ancient times, this would happen. This Hieros Gamos would happen through a priestess embodying the goddess and then opening and sexually receiving a divine consort, her king, and conferring kingship upon him. So the marriage, I would say, I don't want to speak for Bobby Hemmett, but I would say that the sacred marriage and the true marriage was this sexual union, because out of this high alchemy is the idea of eroticism, of fertility and blessing born of fruition again through all of the earth. This is what abundance rooted in interconnectedness of all, and then our acknowledgement and our place in creation, where and how it happens. Sacred marriage expresses itself through humankind. So you talk about, if you're talking about it on a higher level, then sacred marriage being an entity and it expressing our energy and it expressing itself through humankind, the expression of and blessing of a high holy union. So I would believe this is what he was referring to in this idea of the sacred marriage, where we become the vehicles for God. God is to ride through our beings to meet us and to meet and be met.
Oh yeah. Oh
So,
yeah. No,
so
definitely. Yeah.
now how we view marriage, but so yes, I would say in that way, on the spiritual level, is what he's referring to as far as sex being a true marriage. But I don't know that I would necessarily use the term one true and not true, because then there's something still to be said about the institution of marriage, and us getting back to having a reverence for that in the community.
Mm.
As far as when we think about, I just officiated a wedding last month,
Excellent.
and it's beautiful when we can still when we still have those that still believe in this institution. Some say, oh, it's outdated and we don't need, and blah 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 blah. But in ancient times, our ancestors knew that entering into this mystical union,
Right.
because this union of marriage, that it was stabilizing to society.
Yeah.
It was a way to ensure that humanity was going to continue on, but it was going to also be a relationship that was based on something higher than ourselves, making a
Mm,
promise to something, which is the institution, higher than ourselves, based on ma'at, based on truth and balance and righteousness and reciprocity. And so any relationship that we base on that is going to be fruitful and
mm,
lead to a high level of elevation or evolution for everyone who is involved in it, right? And so
mm,
through divine union of a sacred marriage, we get that opportunity also to grow spiritually, to learn how to cultivate all these higher qualities, whether it's of patience and compassion. We get to practice that out in real time within
right.
that union as we devote ourselves to something higher than ourselves. It is a way for us to be able to serve humanity by serving God, by serving God, by serving your spouse, because you're serving your spouse as God. In the Vedic tradition, it's called God feeding God. When we're feeding and nourishing, we're because we are God. So we're serving that God within the temple body of one another in this sacred, holy worship at the altar of each other's hearts, bowing again and again and again in reverence to that one who abides in each of us as God, as love. And so we learn how to serve through marriage. We create we create stable community and family through marriage. We create a stability for children through marriage. So coming, so not so yes, and I get and understand exactly what he's saying on
Mm,
on a spiritual level. Yes, we're creating a marriage there because
mm,
there's a union and high alchemy that's happening. But I say that with us not disregarding the actual institution of marriage as well, which creates strong families, and strong families create strong civilizations. The breaking of the family has been one of the most damaging things that has happened to us as a people. It's created instability in us as a people. It's created a scattered family. It's created an instability in the children. And we need to get back to having a commitment to something that is bigger than just ourselves, not being me, my, mine minded, but being more um, community and world minded, in a sense, again, of knowing that we are all interconnected, right? And I think I don't know if he got kicked off, y'all, because I see he just disappeared. And I can't see. Oh, there you go. I was saying I can't see the comments or questions, so I can't even help you.
indeed. No, definitely. Hey, King Simon just wrote, she is uploading, downloading right now. Teach. I mean, yeah, it's a beautiful thing to see somebody just upload and download from the cosmos and get this information. And like, it's a beautiful thing to see. And like I said in the beginning of the show, King Simon, I said she does a lot of downloading, she does a lot of channeling. So I'm glad that you noticed that as well. So it's an important teaching moment. And I already wrote down certain notes already. So I'm hoping y'all taking this show serious, and taking notes, because this is something that's very serious to the society that we are living in right now. And I just want to ask you, I had one more question I want to ask you about, but I did kind of want to ask you, let me see let me ask you this. They want to know, how do we overcome the shame that religion has put on sexuality? Let me
Mm.
ask you. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's a whole, like, that's literally a whole, that's a whole nother talk. Like we need to have that. I did a teaching around regardless whether you believe the Bible or believe their stories or allegory, or you believe they're real people, the way that we received Christianity has done a number on us, right? Like a number, and the distortions that have come through. And so this is a big piece. Like, this is such a big piece around the how the woman particularly, especially, was shamed, how sex and sexuality was shamed. And so we have to unlearn and then relearn. Part of that is learning, like, the truth of just history alone teaches us, how the regard in which sex and sexuality and the woman in particular was held. So really learning and discovering the history of, how traditions prior to those that indoctrinated us into being shamed and feeling shame around sex and sexuality. That is a big piece that we have to work through, as not just as women, but particularly as women, and but as a society in general. So for me, it was a process of dipping into the well of ancient traditions that were in my own bloodline and lineage that predated um, patriarchal religions that did shame us, that did put shame around the woman, that distorted the stories, that distorted the idea that the woman's body was no longer sacred and powerful, but that it was dirty and something to be ashamed of, and all the processes of humanity in general, and sex and sexuality. So it's the how do we overcome it? I mean, really, it's time and practice within something that is outside of the culture that placed that on you in the first place. I have women that come to the courses that I teach, and so many women come and are, still really dealing with that idea that sex is shameful, my body is shameful, my body is dirty. We get all these initiations as women, the initiation, these rites that, and men have them as well, but I'm speaking of women right now. But these initiations as women, and how we were received at all these initiation points, especially the first initiation into womanhood, which was the blood, and how we were received in it is the initiation. And so most often women have been shamed around all of the initiations of becoming a woman, whereas in the tradition that that I'm initiated into is the total opposite. And if we look at all the traditions prior to only about 5,000 years ago, this is how much damage has been done in the last arguably 6,000 years. Prior to 5 to 6,000 years ago, the woman was revered and worshiped as high and holy, particularly the Black woman being the first woman, the first woman who gave birth to all of creation. So mother, had a heavy responsibility, but, in the tantric tradition, woman was considered not better than. So I want to make that clear, not better than, but higher than, with higher calling spiritually, because mother was the first guru. Was the first teacher even prior to conception. When we talk about Minister Farrakhan, even teaches from a different position. He talks about when you teach a man, you teach an individual, but when you
You
teach
teach a woman.
a nation.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then the same goes for whether if you destroy or beat down a woman, you destroying and beating down an entire nation. We know that saying, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. It's all about, the oppression and suppression of woman, and the power of women and women's bodies. In the tantric view, woman is higher spiritually, but not better than. And both Shiva and Shakti, the masculine and feminine, are equally important and go together. So there's a question, then why? So why is woman so important in the tantric view? There's many reasons. One, the woman represents the primordial void from which all comes. She is the ultimate potential energy. as well as that, taking forms of different kinetic energies. So that's been, so we see this idea of mother consciousness giving birth to generations, mother physically giving birth to generations, void consciousness equal to the experience of a life growing inside the mother's womb. All is within the womb of the void, which is the mother consciousness. So this is, when we think about, say, these images of God, these are just aspects of creation anthropomorphized. We'll see, like in the Vajrayana, the Buddhist tantric traditions, you see a Mahavidyatara as the pregnant quote unquote virgin, as there's no man prior to her because she's pregnant with the entire universe, giving birth to all, right? So there's so many reasons, but they weren't just haphazardly like, oh, the woman is higher. The first species of life recognized is the mother species. Modern geneticists have come to the same conclusion about it, that first of all creations were feminine.
Oh yeah.
So they would always say, if there be any God, she has chosen a female species to give the role of creation. So there's also innumerable self-fertilized female species. There are, anatomically, the female body is a fully evolved Homo sapien. We have an extraglandular system, neurological system, reproductive system, the psychological system. It's we have all of the hormones. So we think about woman being guided more by the right lobe, and more subjective in nature, while the masculine, and again, now we're talking about heteronormativity, but the masculine being guided more by the left lobe and is more objective in nature. And of course there's exceptions and ranges within that, but the subjective nature is the esoteric nature, spiritual nature. So woman, technically by birth and habit, was more highly spiritually evolved, not that men couldn't. So this is just this tantric worldview, which also was a go back to different African spiritual traditions, was the same worldview, because it is the root of this tradition. So woman was the first natural guru for all of the generations. She was the first to teach the child, to feed the child, her energy and imprinting on the child. The female spanda, that life frequency, is centripetal, contrary basically to the centrifugal spanda or life frequency of the masculine. So there's so many reasons that we saw this woman being elevated to a higher power. Even the idea that we don't lose psychic energy by losing our eggs, contrary to a man losing innumerable numbers of sperm cells in his mind in one ejaculation. So there's this so these are where the concepts come from, the body, the actual. So back to her whole question was, how can we, so this is a point, how can we overcome the shame of sex and sexuality that's placed on, just simply by gaining the knowledge to understand what was prior to 5,000 years of indoctrination that has brought us to the place we are now. That can be very hard to do.
Man. Soleil, I really, really, really want to thank you for this show tonight. I mean, what a magnificent show. And we brought up Bobby Hemmett earlier. Bobby Hemmett used to talk to a lot of us and went beyond the intellect. And your talk goes beyond the intellect to somewhere else. I don't know what English word to use to describe it, but it gives me that feeling that Bobby gave me, where it just goes beyond the intellect. So I definitely want to thank you for this talk. I look forward to seeing you actually at the Gathering of the Masses, for those who will be in attendance, or for those who are getting a live stream. Soleil will be in the building. Her and her husband, Professor Griff, will be vending. They have absolutely amazing products. I talked about the resurrection formula before, but they got a list of amazing products that they will have available.
Everybody's calling us about that resurrection.
They was calling y'all after that, huh? Yeah, they was like, that thing Brother Rich was talking about. What's that thing?
I had to go make so much. Like I got a bunch of stock. It's not on the site yet, but so you hit up Griff if you want some, and it'll be on my site soon. But yeah. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, excellent, excellent. I love, promoting great product, and I could tell y'all put a lot of care and love into it, and I know y'all know what y'all doing. So I look forward to seeing you at the gatherings. Keep up the great work. Tell the people how they could get in touch with you, Soleil. If they, I don't know what services you offer besides the products, but let everybody know what you offer and how they could get in touch with you.
Yeah. So I offer classes, workshops, retreats through Goddess Temple of Love. So it's www.goddesstempleoflove.com, and that lists all of the classes, retreats, workshops, everything that's coming up. I have a retreat coming up in Tulum in December 12th through the 19th that we just opened up registration for. I opened up a very limited number of one-on-one Padatan Inner yoga sessions, which are basically heavy mantra, based on a tradition that I was initiated into. So opened up a few of those. I'm not sure if there are any still available, but you can send me an email if you want. All of that information is on the website, goddesstempleoflove.com. And also the link to, if you go there, you can also find the link to, there's a button that says boutique that will take you to the herbal site. So I'm sold out of pretty much almost everything. I'll be restocking next week, but you can, and then on social media, I'm Mrs. Soleil, MRSSOLE, and you can find all the other handles from the Mrs. Soleil page.
Indeed. Once again, Mrs. Soleil, thank you so much for coming on the show. I will see you at the Gathering of the Masters, August 10th and 11th. Family, I want to thank everybody who tuned in today. Make sure you hit up this sister, get some of the products, see what she got going on. King Simon is sharing a lot of her links, her Instagram, Goddess Temple Love. He's sharing the links in the chat. Shout out to King Simon for holding us down tonight in the chat. With that being said, thank you so much, Soleil. I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Peace, Queen. Peace. All right, family. I'll see y'all probably tomorrow, right? Y'all take care. Peace.